From shutting down the most radical feminists to always speaking the truth, no matter who gets offended, Jordan Peterson destroys practically anyone who tries to test him. I mean, this man is always stating facts, even at his angriest. Like the time he confronted that self-described feminist, this is one of the clips that his admirers visit over and over.
If it's true that there's something toxic, let's say, about masculinity per se, what that will inevitably mean is that as women adopt more masculine roles, traditionally, what is that toxicity somehow going to go away?
Because in his interview with The Right Stuff, he was done being polite. The woman he was talking to spoke about how she wanted everybody to have equal choices, as well as the equality of outcome, regardless of what gender they belong to. And this is where he made her realize just how clueless she was about what she wanted. He started off by pointing out how a giant majority of the prisoners in the USA are men, asking her if she'd like for that to change as well, and taking her silence as the victory he definitely deserved. He followed that up by asking her if she'd also want to change the fact that a majority of the bricklayers in this country are men.
Proportion of men, and a huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men.
Obviously, he wasn't going in unprepared. He had all the statistics to back him up, like how literally 99% of bricklayers are men. And one of the most interesting things about this entire conversation was how she kept trying to cut him off. I mean, she didn't really want to let him get one full sentence in, but he was on a roll. Nobody was going to stop him from stating how men have to work longer hours, as well as work some of the most dangerous jobs. Not to mention, they're also more likely to move and more likely to have to work in STEM-related fields. His point was pretty simple. If men are getting paid more than women, maybe it's because they're actually having to put in way more effort. But this isn't even the best one. His interview with Martin Weil got him insanely riled up. You're all pretty well aware of how open this man is about his opinions. And the fact that he doesn't shy away from speaking the truth on the behalf of men everywhere is exactly why he's a hero. But what he really dislikes is being cornered by biased questions, which usually brings him into situations where it's just a lose-lose game for him. Obviously, he's learned quite a lot from the years of experience dealing with problematic journalists. And it was clear in this interview he had with the French journalist that he has had enough people try and manipulate his words into something he didn't mean. And that's exactly why he confronted him right away when he felt the conversation steering towards something else. And he asked him outright whether they're actually talking about masculinity. I mean, you could practically see the person in front of him hesitate before saying that he only wants to ask him about his opinions on men and women.
I thought we were talking about masculinity.
We are.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
How are we talking about masculinity?
Because I'm asking you what you think of men and of women.
No, basically what you've been trying to do, I would say, for the last 15 minutes is put me into a sequence of corners by accusing me of various forms of misbehavior.
But Peterson knew what was really going on, and without even missing a beat, he declared how he knows that he is being wrongfully accused of misbehavior. If you heard his tone, it was clear that he saw right through the nonsense. You might have never seen him angrier than he was over here, and it's hard to imagine how he politely put up with the show for 15 whole minutes. But he's the king of knowing when to give someone a shut-up call, and that's exactly why he's a winner.
I don't know how I'm playing on their distress, exploiting it or helping it.
The fact
Look,
is,
I've said right from the beginning that I'm an evil capitalist. I don't make any bones about it. I'm not ashamed of making money. It's very hard to make money.
Still, none of this gets close to how he treated the activists out at Queen's University. He really exposed just how misinformed these people are. Isn't it basic decency to let a person who has been invited to such a prestigious university conduct his talk in peace? Absolutely not, because two girls thought that it would be a great idea to hold a flag representing their agenda and sabotage his speech, after which they chanted a few words and left. And it's surprising that he was able to keep his calm and not say anything while they were there. He was clearly angry enough to not even be able to speak for a few moments after they left. And once he did speak, he literally called them out as narcissists. He simply noted how these people feel that it's okay to barge into places and ruin the civility of a space like that, because it was an event that a lot of people had worked hard to arrange. Things like that aren't just done with no preparation. But nowadays, the immature behavior of these rebels has started to become pretty annoying. And even if they wanted to express what they felt, they could have just held a civil dialogue where opinions would have been actually warranted.
Yes, I would also say that as students and as faculty members, you shouldn't put up with it. There's no way that you should allow people who are doing this to hijack your educational opportunities and to bend and twist the functions and the structures of the university.
But nothing could stop the professor from speaking out on just how ill-informed their opinions were. I mean, isn't that why they even felt the need to hijack such a highly organized space in the first place? It's almost like nobody would listen to them otherwise. But wait till you hear the next one, because Daily Politics should have never brought up the trans woman subject. A man like him, who is literally doing God's work, would probably be tired by now, simply because of just how often he has to be stating the absolute obvious. The anchor asked him if he believes that a trans woman is a real woman. At first, he looked like the most perplexed man on the planet. Rightfully so. He simply said that he really doesn't like how these questions are phrased. So the woman changed her words and asked him if he thinks that a trans woman is actually a woman. Without even hesitating, Peterson said no, which left the anchor in shock for a second. Don't you just love to see when they're that dumbstruck?
Do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No,
Why not?
because I think that women are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant.
Then she asked him why, and he had to state the most obvious thing for perhaps the 100th time, like the fact that a woman is somebody who is capable of having a baby. And not only do they have female genitalia, but they also have the XX chromosomes, which is literally the entire point of being a woman. Whatever a person may decide to be perceived later on in life is absolutely irrelevant to how they should be perceived by someone else. That's exactly what Jordan has been saying for ages. It's just that most people get excited when they provoke him. And him being asked about alternate pronouns was just another example of that. In trans debate, he was asked whether he would be willing to use alternate pronouns for someone, and even though he had already made it pretty clear in sugar-coated words, they really wanted a direct response from him, so he just said no, with all the bravery he has.
A person is compelled under Canadian law to use the pronoun of another individual's choice on pain of law. And I thought, well, no, that's not acceptable. It's one thing to put limits on what a person can't say, like say with hate speech laws, which I also don't agree with, by the way, but that's a different argument. I think it's a narrower argument.
Obviously, they had to ask him why he thinks that was okay, and in the most inspiring way, he simply said that he doesn't think anybody in the world has control over his language, especially when he's speaking words that he is legislatively entitled to speak. So yeah, nobody can tell him what to say and what not to say, and that's that. But all of this made people question if it's okay to use racial slurs against students too, and he had an answer absolutely ready. Again, stating the obvious, he stated how there's a huge difference between saying that there's something you can't say and then saying that there's something you have to say. He made it crystal clear that he's aware of that difference and will never be forced to go along with the made-up pronouns that is literally been imposed on everybody left and right. But here you have it, some of Peterson's angriest moments.